Hey everybody, this is Brenna with Seven Eagle. Thanks for joining me. I love how I get to talk to really cool people about cool things on Thursdays. So today we're going behind the scenes on what it means to transition from military to civilian. And I'm lucky to have Brandon, one of my amazing coworkers from Seven Eagle, here with me today. Brandon, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, no worries. So my name is Brandon. I'm part of the recruiting team here at Seven Eagles Group. I'm a military transitioning veteran myself. I'm out of the Air Force, so I did a lot of time, about 13 years in service. So now I'm a part of the team here at Seven Eagle, and it's been a blast so far. And I'm looking forward to sharing you some of my experiences here.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your service. I know you've had quite an experience in the last 13 or so years being overseas, and you've really gotten to see what it means to not only be a military member, but also what it means to transition as far as different community groups. So you definitely have a lot of advice to share, and I'm glad we get to talk about that today. So let's start kind of at the beginning. When you joined the military, what were some of the biggest culture shocks as far as joining?
All right, so for me, I'm gonna talk just a little bit about right before I joined. Right, so I didn't really have a great idea of what I wanted to do. So once I finished high school, I went to college for probably like a semester, right? And then at that point in time, I was like, this is not it for me right now, right? So while I was, going taking my courses, I was going to see the recruiter too, right? Because it was in the same, direction of my college. And so we're working through the process, and I get there, right? And so I'm there. They said, "Hey, what will get me out of Alabama, Bessemer, Alabama, the quickest, right?" And so he said, "Security forces." And so I was like, all right, sign me up. Let's go. And so, yeah, I started my career, right? What was some of the biggest shockers, for me? I did play sports growing up, but the BMT, right? Going through BMT, it's kind of built to kind of break you down and pitch you back together, but with that team cohesion piece. So, like me being a part of a team was something I was familiar with, but to a different scale. Because in high school or nothing like that, nobody's telling you, hey, you need to turn those lights off at what 8 p.m. sharp, or anything like that, So that was one of the biggest shockers. And then my first duty station was Italy, right? So I'm from Alabama, Bessemer, Alabama, and as an 18-year-old kid, I'm transitioning over here to Aviano, Italy. Complete shock, right? But then that's what for me made that team cohesion even stronger, right? Because although we work with the local nationals too as well, our family, right, is the team that we're working with, which is my peers, U.S. veterans now or while they're in working alongside me.
Yeah, I love how when people start their military career, it is such a celebration. There's a parade at the end of graduation for both basic training and officer training school. And we really rally around people when they commit themselves to serving the country. And then for you, Italy has been kind of a bookend of, the bookends for your career. You started there and you're ending there. But as we have our service members and the families that they've, grown as they separate from the military or retire, we just kind of, they take the TAPS class, and it's kind of just a, take, shake, salute, and we send them out the door. There's not that same celebration when they are leaving the service, even though they've done such a great job, protecting the country and keeping us safe. And just, we're looking at the storm down, in Florida right now. We've got some of our coworkers down there, and what the military community, both Guard, Reserve, and active duty, and then our brothers and sisters in the police and fire and, the power companies, there's not that same thank you when they exit. So I know transitioning service members, thank you everybody for your commitment. So Brandon, what have you learned as you've exited and transitioned out of the military that has been a shock? Maybe that you were surprised after your 13 years.
Um, for me, right, it was I think it's a little bit different from a retirement versus a member who's separating, right? Um, because they for whatever reason, I think also too, it may not be as big, but it does take a part, right? You didn't finish that 20-year commitment, right? So a lot of times when you finish that 20-year commitment, what normally comes with that retirement ceremony, right? So it's funny you touch on the topic of at the beginning of your career, you have that the bomb run parade, right, for Air Force over at Lackland, Texas. This is my graduation. This is my induction into the military, and then for those who separate, right, you don't really get that same level of what a retiree would get, right? There's no retirement ceremony. There's no separation ceremony, right? So with that being said, I would say it's for me, right? I was brought into the Air Force, and the big seller was that camaraderie and BMT for me, right? With that team cohesion and things of that nature. Once you separate in that sense, I don't think you really get too much of that unless it's from somebody who's like for me, I had a close team, right? So I worked in the training section. It was about 8 other people that worked alongside me for about 3 years. And that was my team. That was my cohesion. And that's what, if they weren't there, I don't think I would have got that same level of anybody kind of saying, hey, congratulations on your separation, right? Um, so things that I've kind of seen that along the way while I've been doing my skill bridge internship that I would like to emphasize on is taking advantage of TAPS, right? That transition assistance program. A lot of the things that our recruiting firm that we kind of highlight is having a great resume, right? Having good interview skills. And these are all things that are offered at TAPS, one-on-one courses, group settings, right? And I just don't think we take advantage of it enough. And that's what I would harp on. If anything out of this piece right here, take advantage of the resources you have available to you before you exit. Have a plan early, right? And I know I'm kind of long-winded on should be a simple question, but know when to branch off if you already know that you're getting ready to exit the military, right? For me, it was hard because not to toot my horn, I'm a hard worker, and that's what kind of me growing up in the military has kind of instilled in me, right? And I want to present quality work. I want to do my best. I want to get head first into what I'm doing, but I'm getting ready to separate. When do I switch my gears, pass off my workload, and focus on me, right? And I think that's a big thing that our vets or soon to be transitioning vets have to realize. It's okay to say I need to focus on me, because the mission always will come first, right? And there will be people to continue the mission after you exit. You have to realize that.
Yeah, we always want to think that we're going to be missed and things are going to fall apart without us. And like sometimes that is true. Programs get dropped and lost, but you always have to take faith in the fact that you are training those who are coming after you. And if you are mentoring others and watching out for them and allowing them to fail just enough to learn, then things will be okay when you do take a step away. And Brandon, you are absolutely a hard worker, and I love being able to have you on our Seven Eagle team. So we have coffee together, and we're stationed all over the world, but we have coffee together every Wednesday at 11:30 East Coast time. And that is something that I look forward to probably most in my work week, is getting to connect with our team here, because I think we have a very solid team, and I love hearing everybody's stories when we get together. Whether some people are, drinking coffee and sound of freedom. But yeah, so some of you guys are still drinking coffee, over in Europe, but it's finding that group that's gonna help you transition, whether they've transitioned before or they're civilians who are able to give good insight onto what that career field is like, or military spouses who have kind of had one foot on either side for the last couple of years.
Mhm.
And you're transitioning overseas, which is a whole different
Yes.
scenario. So, is there any advice you can give to someone who is in a similar position to you that is overseas?
I would definitely tread back to that piece where if you know you're gonna do it, plan early, right? Because you know I think you can't plan enough to transition if you're let's say going back wherever your home is in the states. Now I would say times two that, right, in a foreign country because there's going to be other stipulations that apply. So yes, I would say no. Your embassy, local embassy, if you do plan on transitioning overseas, it's going to be your best friend. They're going to have so many resources available to you. Um, because you're probably going to need some type of extended stay or some type of visa, right? Because if you're not attached to the military anymore, the SOFA doesn't really, apply to you anymore.
Yeah.
So you gotta make a plan and make it early. So I would stick to that right there.
Yeah. And so financially, when you're
Mhm.
transitioning out, they hold part of your pay. And I know that's something that people aren't necessarily prepared for is in the military, we don't necessarily keep that 6 month cushion for emergencies, but definitely building that up as you are going along in your last few years so you can be prepared for that time period if you are retiring or you're waiting on disability pay, making sure you
Mhm.
have that cushion in place in case stuff doesn't come rolling as quickly as maybe you would hope.
Totally agree. And just to throw this piece out there too, if not a lot of people are familiar with the program, uh, the acronym BDD, and pretty much what it is for those military soon to be transitioning veterans to be able to submit their medical records between 90 to 180 days so that they can get a rating as soon as they exit the military. You have to take advantage of it because I've seen folks who haven't, and they hit day 89 and they're trying to submit their records to their local medical facility or a VSO, and they have to wait, right? And we don't know how long that wait is.
So would that be going to the VA representative on their base, or is that through MPF?
So that's what they would do. They would continue to one, they need to contact whoever their medical person is, right? So um, normally you should have you make contact with your medical facility, but you still want to have uh, VSO on your side too as well, and that's separate from the VA, right?
Okay.
So having a VSO who has experience in it too as well that can kind of give you some inside knowledge, maybe some information that the VA may not know, right? It's good to have multiple resources, but the VA will help you too as well. But I think your first step, talk to your PCM. First step, talk to your PCM. Everybody in the military is assigned a PCM, right? Whether they have their annual PHAs and things of that nature. If you know you're getting ready to get out the military, talk to your PCM. Talk about, hey, I want to get going on the BDD program so that you can start the process of getting your medical records uploaded at least 180 to 90 days before you separate.
That's really good. I did not know about that. So thanks, Brandon. Um, any recruiting tips that you want to provide for people as they are making their way in the civilian world? What have you seen on resumes that you make someone a viable candidate, or what? Um, I always like to tell people to make sure that they include the city or state and zip code of where they want to live versus where they're currently living. What advice do you have?
I think the biggest thing that I've seen as I go through and I'm sourcing and I'm looking at resumes is you know uh, speaking plain language, right? No more acronyms. Well, if you use it, just make sure it's something that's common that the hiring authority would be able to understand, right? And be honest. Be honest about what you've done and what you bring to the table. And when I say be honest, I mean really think about, all right, cool. How does your job performance or what you did in the military translates over? Because uh, everything translates, right? If you've done, for me, for example, security forces, which is a lot of law enforcement, a lot of security, right? This translates over. Also, too, the minute you make rank to NCO, now you're managing, right? So those managerial skills that you do have, understand that you have those skills, right? And being able to translate that over there to the resume, because that's just going to bump you up even further. And take advantage of the, what the Air Force provides to you, or the military, different departments provide to you, such as the certification program, such as Cool, and things of that nature. That's something I regret myself, because the Air Force gives you upwards to $3,000 something dollars for free for certification, right?
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. There's not many companies, if you want to consider DoD a company, that help their employees get a job after they work with them. So I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate you bringing up how TAPS can have such good one-on-one sessions when it comes to resumes and interviews and LinkedIn, starting your own business, how to create that elevator speech, how to figure out what it is that you even want to do, because something like security forces can be transferable, um, but not every military job directly is. And obviously from security forces to recruiting, it was, I think you're a natural at it, but
Mm-hmm.
not everyone's going to take those two and connect them, right?
Very true. Very true.
Yeah, awesome. Do you have any last advice for us, Brendan?
Uh, I would say, look, I put this on my LinkedIn earlier in the week, and I just want to throw this out there for everybody who ends up watching this video. Um, Find your stride, right? And when I say that, that if you ever ran before, in the military, I know you have, for a PT test, right? And so you get to a point, I think if you run so much, you get what's called that runner's high, right? You're in that momentum, you're in that stride, and you're going, and you feel like you can do this forever now, which in the last 10 seconds, you didn't feel like that, right? Until you had that runner's high. Once you find that, continue to thrive off of that energy and push until you get to where you want to be. And if it's a weekly goal you have to set, if it's a bi-weekly goal, set it and get after it. All right. Find that runner's high and continue to push and strive for what you want, because you can do anything that you want to. And that's kind of what I want to kind of leave you with.
Yeah, I love it. Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate getting to work with you. I think you are a great example of the skills that our service members have. And yeah, so thanks for having this behind the scenes chat with me. And thanks for joining us here at Seven Eagle, guys. Have a good day.
You too. Have a good one.
Bye.